Hi, I'm Alicia. Today I'm joined by Anna Russel, Data-Centric Security Specialist at Forte. Anna, how did you get into the industry?
When I realised actually I probably wasn't going to be a ballet dancer, I had to think about an alternative career choice. When I was 16, I did a business course with French, and working in Paris for 6 months, nobody wanted to speak French to me. So I knew that wasn't going to be a destination of choice for me to start working. And on return of this duration in France, I came back and realised that my brother, who's 6 years older than me, had actually started to make a huge amount of money in the industry. So I was just totally excited by how this new industry in the mid-90s was becoming such an important place and bubbly place for us to all be part of, that I actually started off working for an IT distributor, starting at the very bottom, being the internal person for a group of salespeople at a company in Wokingham. And it literally started from there. So over 2 and a bit decades later, I'm still in the industry. I've just evolved through different sectors of the industry, but it's always been predominantly IT.
So Anna, what is your typical day? Every day when you wake up Monday to Friday, what do you do?
Wow. So depending on, what that week is consisting of, bearing in mind I do cover a large region, so I cover Europe, Middle East and Africa and also Asia Pacific. So my week can start on a Monday morning panicking whether I'm going to the right airport, as I did this for the first time ever 2 weeks ago. So I spend a huge amount of time traveling to and from different countries. I spend a huge amount of time working from home and talking with our existing customers and our prospect customers and customers who are potentially looking at different ways of approaching security. My evenings, depending on how stressful it's been during the day, can either consist of wine or lots of lovely time with my kids. So it's really varied.
So what is it like for you to work in a very male-dominated industry?
When I first of all started working in the IT industry, I specialised in networking, and every single customer or vendor meeting outside of marketing generally was a room full of men. Something that I learned very early on in my career was that to almost compete in a male dominated industry is that you really, really have to understand and know your subject. And if you don't understand really the business reason behind why you're doing something with your customers or the people that you are working with on a day-to-day basis, whether that's internally as a business or externally whilst you are with your customers, you really come unstuck, because we work with many different kinds of men and women, and on both sides, you really have to ensure that whatever you are doing, you are bringing value back. Sometimes that can actually, present some risks for you as a female, because, and I didn't have a technical role. I was a commercial. I've always been in a commercial side of any of the organisations that I've worked on. But sometimes I would actually get too technical, because I would be concerned about actually not understanding enough about technology, and in a male environment where some of the other people that I might be working with at that time would understand an awful lot more than me, that I'd come unstuck. So I think that was really important at an early stage, that I probably exaggerated my need as a young female in the industry to compensate for the fact of just having men around all the time.
So let's talk about an industry that you've been in for basically ever. So what are your predictions for next year, for 2020?
Thanks for reminding me that I have been around for an awful long time there, Alicia. Yeah, it's fine. We are seeing decades rather than years now of how long I've been in the industry. So yeah, cyber is such an interesting industry at the moment. So for many years, enterprises and organizations have had to look or have only had the option of cyber security software and hardware vendors looking at how they protect the perimeter. So firewalls, VPNs, other solutions that actually only protects their walls from people from getting in. Now what we're seeing, because of the way that the black web works with how hackers can pretend to be individuals or pretend to be internal users, etc., the perimeter is collapsing. You see so many different ways of how we all communicate. When I first of all started in the industry, that makes me sound really old, when I first started in World War One, we all had mobile phones, but we all didn't have the ability to do what we can do on mobile phones today. So just that theory of within an organisation of your employees being able to present lots of sensitive information, potentially critical assets or IP of an organisation on their mobile device brings a risk that actually perimeter security isn't going to prevent hackers from being able to steal information. If we just look at the majority of that wonderful website, informationisbeautiful.net, you look at all of the hackers that have managed to get in, they actually haven't had a problem with getting across the perimeter, the firewall, and the defense mechanism from protecting people just on the edge. They've actually got data outside of the perimeter. So the shift between organizations just being able to have perimeter security and think that they are safe and that their name or brand won't end up on that lovely website, informationisbeautiful.net, has collapsed. I'm not saying that, the industry is pushing towards get rid of your perimeter security, but what I predict is that enterprises have to look at additional layers of security on top of protecting their perimeter, because otherwise they're still vulnerable to have their name either in the press or to have their name with the European Commission and have to notify breach to us as European citizens or throughout the world. That an element of true data security has to be embraced, and we're seeing a shift in that this year. We've seen it in the past 3 years, and 2020, I predict, will be probably the most amount of enterprises who, if they haven't already embraced a data security initiative internally, they will be putting it on their agenda for 2020 or shifting into 2021.
So Anna, what's the best thing about working for Comforte?
Comforte is 2 words combined. Communication is our forte. And those 2 words combined is clearly demonstrated when you talk to partners and customers that Comforte have been working with for either recent years or for 20 years. Our partners and our customers always are so pleased and happy with the fact that we really treat them as an extension of our team. And that was the culture that I came into Comforte from, an interaction of me thinking, okay, before I go and work for a privately owned company headquartered in Germany, I wanted to do a little bit of an assessment of talking to some of their customers. And every customer I spoke to literally said, there is such high integrity with the way that the way that Comforte interacts with everybody, that it's truly magnificent. So it's very different to the traditional post-IPO American 170,000 employee approach and how you work with your customers. We're very intimate, we're very customer centric, and that also is rolled throughout the organization internally for employees. We pride ourselves, and the company prides, themselves on ensuring that we have a great work-life balance. So we literally, you own your own destiny at Comforte. You have the ability and the freedom to be entrepreneurial on a day-to-day basis. There is never a silly thought or idea that any of our employees have. Everybody's listened to, everybody's taken seriously, and it really gives you the freedom to develop. That to me is just a wonderful way to treat people, because not only does it give them the freedom to develop, it also gives them the freedom to be able to have a nice life of doing great things with friends and family outside of work, not always putting work first. My boss always says to me, you're going on holiday, do not check your emails, do not go on your phone, really take some time off. I've never had a boss say that to me before. So it's really lovely just to know that, Comforte really thinks highly of the balance between a healthy brain and a non-healthy brain means that you have to have that switch off time. Otherwise, nobody's productive. Nobody comes up with new ideas if you don't give that balance between how much work and effort we have to put in when we work for so many hours throughout the year as a comparison to when we have time off. And I think that's really special.
So who is the most influential person that you've met in this industry?
I have to say that it's a previous boss, but now very close friend, Tammy Shuring. When I worked for Tammy, she was based in the US and still is based in the US, in California, and I was based in London. So our paths would infrequently cross because of time zone, and she would only travel over to Europe periodically. So having a boss where you are, not in the same continent can be quite difficult. Tammy introduced me to a fundamental way of how to transform your ability, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, within the industry, to have a very different approach between any interaction and how to build authentic connections. And that can be in your personal life or your work life. And she led a program or an initiative for a company that I worked for her in, of storytelling. And for those of you that haven't ever gone through understanding the power of storytelling, do some research, go and have a review of what storytelling really means. Storytelling is basically, how can you be as authentic as you are naturally as a person, but bring it back to the value of business? And it really enabled me to connect faster and more freely with people that I would interact with. And that was internally and also with customers. And what it taught me to be is actually just be yourself all the time. We are human, but that you can make mistakes. There's no harm in front of whoever you are with. That if they are a decent human being, they will have empathy. And if you don't have empathy in return with your day-to-day engagement with anybody, with you and me, Alicia, sat here now, if you didn't have empathy in certain things that we're discussing, it wouldn't be a meaningful conversation. If I don't have empathy when I walk into an office, or if I walk into a customer's office, that say, for example, somebody's having a really, really crappy day, then, meaningful relationships don't form. And Tammy was just inspirational around the whole journey and understanding of how to use the power of storytelling in all areas of your life.
Anna, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and this podcast has also been so much fun.
Oh, I've had a great time. No problem at all.